Yeah.
Third week together. Last time we talked about social facilitation and social loafing, and the question was generally what effect a group has on performance, help or hurt to be in the group, or at least observed by a group. And we talked about two factors that can moderate the effect of the group. The task itself is easy or hard, changes it, and then also the difference between social looping and social facilitation. The difference between whether your individual performance is identifiable or is just pooled or averaged with the group. That you suggested modifies it too. Sometimes you get enhancement by a group, sometimes you get impairment by presence of others, depending on the level of the factors. And this was not you really actively being part of a group, but simply the effect of being watched. And the argument generally is that being watched raises your arousal level and makes you fall back on what you would have done anyway. Easy tasks, what you would have done anyway is the right thing. Today we're going to talk about another role of groups, which is as reference, that is, we turn to others under certain circumstances. And here we will spend our time on what's called social comparison theory. And the kind of phenomenon that this theory was invented to explain is that if you decide, for example, to try skydiving, one of the first things you'll do is try to convince a few of your friends to go with you. Or, if you receive some terrible diagnosis from your doctor, one of the first things you'll do is call other people. Or, if your team wins the championship, sorry, people from San Diego don't know what this is like, but imagine you live, say, in New York, and your team won the championship. What would you do? Would you celebrate by yourself, or would you want to be with other people? And often, even if you're watching a game by yourself, if your team wins, you rush out onto the street to be with other people. Fessinger observed such things and wondered why, and invented social comparison theory. So this is the work of Leon Fessinger. We'll get his name on the board. He was pivotal in social psychology. We'll hear again. Leon Fessinger, in the genealogy of the field, was a student of Kurt Lewin, which basically founded modern social psychology. He then was the academic father of Leon Fessinger. And what Fessinger suggested was people had a basic desire to evaluate their abilities and opinions. That is, you want to know, is what you think reasonable? Is your level of ability on some task reasonable? Are you good at motorcycle jumping? Is it reasonable to vote for the candidate you voted for? Is it reasonable to like the movies that you like, dislike the movies that you dislike, and so on? And Fessinger suggested there are two ways to do this evaluation. One is by turning to the physical reality. So if you want to know whether you are good at motorcycle jumping, that's being on a motorcycle, jumping over stuff, not jumping over a motorcycle, what you could do is test your ability against the physical reality. So if you were Evel Knievel, say, and you wanted to know whether you could jump on a rocket-propelled motorcycle over the Snake River Canyon, you could evaluate that by getting a rocket-propelled motorcycle and trying to jump over the Snake River Canyon. And you would discover, in fact, that your motorcycle jumping ability allows you to jump about halfway across the canyon. Those of you who follow motorcycle jumping, if you're jumping over a canyon, it's a good idea to either not do it at all or do it 100% halfway. It's not good. So that's the physical reality. If you want to know, is something fragile, you can try dropping it. All of those ways are testing something against the physical reality. But Fessinger suggested physical reality is rarely satisfactory. So Evel Knievel's question isn't really, can he jump over Snake River Canyon on a motorcycle, but is he a great motorcycle jumper? And for that, one necessarily has to turn not to the physical reality, but to the social reality. That is, how good is his motorcycle jumping compared to other people's motorcycle jumping? So he wants to know, essentially, how well do other people do compared to how well he does at whatever this task is. And this will be the case in almost all circumstances. So if you get your score back on the midterm exam and it's a 58, you should think. Right, you don't know what to think. 58 doesn't have any meaning. What you want to know is how well did other people do? And if it turns out you got a 58 and most people scored in the 80s and 90s, you would be sad. If you got a 58 and other people scored in the 30s and 40s, you would be sad for them, but happy for yourself. That is, your score on a test is almost entirely a function of the social reality, not the physical reality. The physical reality on a test is mostly arbitrary. That is, you might think 58, let's say 58%, that means I don't know 42%, but whether it's reasonable to not know 42% is a question that only the social reality can answer. And for attitudes, it's almost always the case that there is no physical reality. That is, sometimes it's an attitude that's a prediction of the future, and then you just wait and see if it's true. But most attitudes don't have any physical reality to test them against. That is, should a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy be unfettered? There is no physical reality. You simply have a belief about that. That is, you think there should be the right to choose, there should be a right to life for the unborn child. And what you think on that is just an opinion. And so Festinger argued in cases like that, what you will do is compare yourself to other people. And this will be true for lots and lots of things. So for example, if I were to ask you, is it okay to, say, marry and or have sex with your first cousin? Anyone here? First cousin, is it illegal? Immoral? Unwise? First cousin was just not appealing. Other people's first cousins, would that be okay? Is the thought of marrying and having sex with people just gross? Is it okay to marry and or have sex with other people's first cousins? There's a consensus, yes. Good. Your own, and again you can think, how would you know the answer to that question? That is, what if I revealed to you that 95% of Americans think that's fine? Would that influence your opinion? What if I tell you your first cousin thinks it's okay? First cousin once removed. Second cousin. Someone who's only related to you because they share a common ancestor in Africa. So there's some degree of relationship where it becomes okay. But you can see that the line between okay and not okay is largely arbitrary and could readily be determined by social norms. This is true for almost everything we eat. That is, would it be okay to find a snail leaving a slime trail across a leaf and pick it up and eat it? In garlic sauce? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but whether you regard it as reasonable would depend entirely on what the people around you think. That is, you look to others to evaluate. It's the same for the reason that after you go to a movie, you turn to the friends that you went to the movie with. People still know what going to a movie is. Let's say you download a movie and you watch it not in the same room as other people, but you synchronize your screens with the screens of your friends. And then at the end, you IM back and forth about your opinions of the movie. Would it shake your confidence if your friends all right away say, like, oh my God, that was so corny. That was just sappy, corny, I didn't like that at all. And you were thinking, that was kind of romantic. That is when you change your mind and you think, like, more civilly. was kind of sappy. There was a certain romantic appeal, but not one that bears close scrutiny. And so the idea is lots of opinions like this are shaped by the opinions of people around you. You look to others to form your beliefs. And Festinger argued you don't just look randomly to others. That is, if you have some belief and you want to know if it's a reasonable one, you don't just pull random people. You pull systematically people who are similar to you. That is, you want to do comparison of your level of ability or your beliefs about various things, your attitudes, with other people who are similar to you. So if you get a certain score on a math test, it doesn't help you to think like, well, kindergartners would have done a lot worse. What you want to know is how about other people like me, your roommates, your friends, and if you discover one math major did better, you might think, well, that's a different category. I'm not going to compare myself to math majors. I'm going to compare myself to people who are taking it basically for distribution purposes or reason to acquire to be an economics major or whatever it would be. So you want to compare to similar others. This is the critical factor in shaping all sorts of downstream effects of social comparison. You turn to similar others to evaluate opinions and beliefs. So, for example, if you wander, by mistake, into a KKK rally, and everyone there is expressing attitudes about the inequality of the races, you would think, like, oh, looks like I have the wrong opinion. You would think those people are not similar to me, and their opinions aren't useful reference for my own. And it's even more subtle than that. So if you are a campus Republican, are you here today? He's not here today. If you're a campus Republican, what you would do is create a little group of young Republicans, and you would get together to discuss political issues with those people. Democrats get together with Democrats, Republicans get together with Republicans, religious people get together to discuss religion with other religious people, atheists, it turns out, have little groups where they get together, sometimes once a week, to discuss not God. I don't even know what atheist groups discuss. Do you guys believe yet? Nope, not me. Okay, see you next week. Or I guess if you go, you believe in Jesus? Nope. You believe in Thor? Nope. You believe in Zeus? Nope. Okay. So, the idea is there's some pressure towards uniformity. And what this means is that when you wonder about an attitude and you get together with other people who are similar to you, they will tend to agree with you. And this will make you think that your opinion is the correct one. So if Republicans think like, gosh, what do we think about the immigrant ban? They get together with other people who are selective already to be at that end of the political spectrum, and they say, we largely agree with it. And you think, I guess my opinion agreeing with it is the right one because I found a whole group of people who agree with it. And if you're at the other end of the spectrum, you think that's a terrible thing. I will now validate my opinion by carefully getting together with other people who are similar to me already. They'll say like, gosh, it's amazing we agree with you, and you'll go away thinking that your opinion is the right one too. And notice what this does by validating basically everyone's opinion, people polarize. If you didn't have this preference for comparison with similar others, you would ask people who disagree with you, like, oh, maybe I need to rethink this. It's a more nuanced argument or a more nuanced political proposition than I originally thought. And maybe I should moderate my opinion and move a little bit towards the center. There's lots of attention now on popular press and people's media exposure and how that is now carefully pre-selected to be similar to you. That is, there's a channel that you watch if you're a liberal Democrat and a different channel that you watch if you're a conservative Republican. And what it enables you to do is validate your opinions. And then frequently people are surprised when they're actually national surveys. That's crazy. I thought everyone had the opinion I have. Where did all those other people come from? And people on both sides can think that because of their careful selection into these groups. This sort of comparison with similar others, that's pre-selecting others with the similarity, allows whole populations to drift away. That's the kind of thing that happens with cults. There's a cult, you remember, that place in Rancho Santa Fe, Heaven's Gate was it called, where they decided that they all needed to castrate themselves, and then in order to be taken off this physical plane by a passing comet, they all needed to kill themselves so that their souls could tag along with the tail of the passing comet. And people reading about this happening at Renton House in Rancho Santa Fe wonder how could fully competent people come to believe that? And the answer is they were only doing social comparison with carefully selected people who are already similar to them. So you say, here's a belief that seems reasonable to me. If you were to randomly sample people for comparison, those people would say, I don't know, that sounds crazy. If, however, you only do comparison with similar others, other people who are in the cult with you, they say, that sounds fine to me. And it enables cults to drift away. So imagine, for example, that you get a job after you graduate. Sorry, psych majors will just have to keep this hypothetical. You get a job after you graduate, but you're not really sure what the dress code is. That is, how formal should your clothes be? And so, to be cautious on the first day of work, you wear a suit, say, tie, matching, and jacket, and you share an office with another new recruit who has gone through a similar process. I don't know what to wear, or on the side of caution, and that person shows up wearing a suit. So there you are in the office together wearing suits, and you would think to yourself, I made the right choice. Because clothes are almost entirely determined by social comparison with other people. That is, people wear suits if they think other people are wearing suits. That is, if you decide to wear a tie to this wedding, your thought isn't, would it be reasonable to have a noose around my neck while I'm dancing? Your thought instead is, will other people be wearing ties? Other people are wearing ties, you wear ties. Other people aren't, you wouldn't. And so showing up for the first day of work, you discover that your choice of the suit was the right one. Your office mate is wearing a suit. Then after a little while, you have to send your suit to the cleaners, and because you only have one suit, you switch to a sport coat that day. Your office mate sees you now come in the second week in a sport coat and thinks like, oh, I guess the dress code is a little more relaxed than I had thought before, and he comes in a sport coat. And then you see him in a sport coat, and you think like, oh, I guess I'm not going to switch back to a suit, but his sport coat seems fine at this job. And then your roommate spills something on his tie, and so one day you can't wear a tie. And so you think, oh, I guess ties are necessary, and then you don't wear a tie, and then your office mate sees you not wearing a tie, oh, I guess no tie is fine. And pretty soon the two of you are showing up at work and cut off some flip-flops. Because as long as you're each other's only comparison, you can drift away from reality. Lots of people think this is what's happening in California. So the other effect of this, so one effect is looking for similar others, that is pre-selecting people to be similar to you before you do the social comparison with them. The other effect of social comparison theory is trying to make other people similar to you. That is, if other people express in your group an attitude that's divergent from your own, you would try to change their mind. That is, the presence of other people who disagree with you threatens the validity of the attitude that you hold. And so, you would try to change their mind. So if you're hanging out with a group of friends, and one of them says, I don't really see what the problem is with incest. Two people love each other, they ought to be allowed to love each other. And you would find this disturbing. And you would say, oh, crazy though, how about birth defects of the children? And it's just weird and uncomfortable. And the person says, no, it isn't. Let me try to convince you. You say, no, let me try to convince you. And so that you would put pressure on each other to try to restore unanimity. And this is consistent with what we talked about in class 2, if I remember right, about dating, that people look for similar others. That is, you want other people who share lots and lots of attitudes with you. Hobbies, interests, tastes, sports, political attitudes, religious attitudes, sexual attitudes, all of those things. You want similar others. And then a good predictor of a relationship coming to a rapid close is someone who disagrees with you on major issues. And it's kind of exciting at first, like, oh, we have to debate God every day. And then after a little while, when you can't change the person's mind, you think, like, how do we just date other people? try to make the person agree with you. If you can't, then it just becomes annoying. And so you get this pressure towards uniformity. And the argument is, because groups of similar others are important to us, because they enable us to evaluate ourselves, our opinions, and our abilities, you don't want to lose the group. So if you're a member of a group, especially a group that has special tastes and interests, it has some power over you. Because if you disagree with them on some major issue, and they can't make you agree, and you can't make them agree, then your parting ways is the solution. But if you really need the group for comparison purposes, parting ways is unfortunate. And so in order to avoid that, especially as the group becomes more precious to you, you will succumb more and more to the pressure. So fringe groups, for this reason, tend to be quicker to suppress dissent. So if you are some socially progressive Southern California undergraduate, there are plenty of people that you can turn to. So there are lots of issues where you know that most people you talk to will agree with you. And lots of contentious issues are largely this way now. So if you say, I believe gay marriage ought to be legal and recognized federally in all the states, if you think, here's someone who disagrees with me, you don't think, I better change my opinion to keep that person close. You may think there are, whatever it is, 24,000 other people in the immediate vicinity I could turn to validate my opinion. But if you hold an opinion that's rare, like the supremacy of your race, then the opportunities for social comparison are much more limited. And if the group says, if you don't come to agree with us, you will have to find another group. Because that's so hard, you will now succumb more to the pressure. And the more you want to be in the group, the greater the power the group has over you. Sometimes called the principle of least interest. That is, the less interested you are in the group, the lower your stake is in remaining in the group, the less power the group has over you. So if you imagine a dating situation where one of the people really wants to continue the relationship, and the other person isn't so sure, the one who's not so sure has all of the power. So that one says, like, oh, what do you want to do tonight? Go to a movie, say, that would be fun. And you say, no, I'd kind of like to go to dinner. The person's like, okay, we'll break up then. So like, oh, okay, we'll go to a movie, whatever you want. It suggests strategically that it might be in your interest when you're in a relationship to make the other person think that you're the one who cares less, which increases your power over what you do as a person. So when your partner says, like, oh, darling, I love you so much, you would say, like, oh, yeah, whatever. You say, like, oh, I don't know, I guess we'll date. I'm looking around at a couple of people I might think better. But in the meantime, let's continue this relationship. And that way, if you want to go to a movie, your partner will be, okay, we'll go to a movie, because you don't need me as a comparison of. Downside of this, of course, is you'll be sick of your partner very quickly. It's unrequited love that lasts, so there's a trade-off. Like you can have a very powerful position in the relationship, and then you're sick of it and wish to leave. Okay, so how would you test these various things? This is done, actually, with experiments on deviants. A man whose name will also recur. You have it, Stanley Schachter. And Stanley Schachter's name is written under Leon Fester's name because Schachter is a student of Leon Festinger. So now, remember, Kurt Lewin, I said, was the father of modern social psychology. Leon Festinger is the academic son of Kurt Lewin. So now imagine this is an LSAT question. Lewin is the father of modern social psychology. Festinger is the son of Lewin. Therefore, Festinger is anyone here want to go to law school? Anyone here want to put their hand up and be called on because they want to go to law school?
His brother.
Or is modern social psychology a brother of modern social psychology? This isn't critical for the exam, so. Let's start to figure it out. Lewin is the father of modern social psychology. Festinger is his son. There are two options. Festinger is either modern social psychology, which is, look, he's the father of modern social psychology, he's the son of him. Or there's another sibling, modern social psychology. Lewin is the father of modern social psychology, and the father of Festinger, suggesting that they are at least half siblings. Okay, now this is the part that we are going to study now. Lewin is the father of modern social psychology. Schachter is the grandson of Lewin. Schachter is or either the son of modern social psychology or the nephew. Okay. You can wake up here. Schachter did experimental evidence for the social comparison theory, because he was the student of the person who invented social comparison theory. And what he wanted to do was create groups that varied in how appealing they were, have people disagree with the group, and see whether these pressures towards uniformity in the two ways, in selecting your comparison group and in changing the members of the group, were operative. So what they did is to create discussion groups. People who were interested in discussion groups put their name on a list. And there are a couple of different kinds of groups. One was supposed to be a movie club, and so people who really wanted to be in a movie club indicated that on the list. And the other one was designed to discuss issues of social importance. And so people wanted to be on that, put their name on that list. They then created actual discussion groups. And all of the discussion groups discussed these public policy sorts of issues. So the people who wanted to be in a movie club were told, I know this isn't what you wanted, but here's a group that will let you in. And so those people who have less desire to be in the group, the people who really wanted to be in the group, just like that, had more desire to be in the group. The group then discussed the case of Johnny Rocco, a case of which you haven't heard because they made it up. And Johnny Rocco was a troubled adolescent who'd been involved in vandalism, truancy, etc. And they were doing a whole case study, and the group had to decide what do you think should be done to help young Johnny Rocco. And they were given a continuum of options that ranged from the harshest, that is, he ought to be sent to juvenile hall, reform school, or military academy. That is, he's tried various loving, tender approaches, and they haven't marked its time for some serious discipline. Two, at the other end of the spectrum, what Johnny needs is more love. His parents need to be more forgiving, more understanding, more supportive, more nurturing, and that he will, in this way, learn to feel valued and loved and responsible, and will move out of the juvenile delinquent phase. So there's a continuum of options, and the group discusses what they think the right approach is. And they're given enough information on Johnny Rocco to have some reasonable opinion. People in the group tend to, so if we have these two options, how harsh you are, how loving you should be, real subjects tend to favor the love and the spectrum. That is, in all cases, but at least as it's presented, they think he needs more support, more nurturing, more care, rather than going off to reform school. What Schachter does is put into the group three confederates, that is, three people who X-rays real subjects, but are really in Schachter's employ. And one of them simply starts out and maintains this what is a general consensus of real subjects. One of them starts out arguing for a harsh position, and that is the deviant. That's enough of this love stuff. People only learn from punishment, never from praise, and it's time that Johnny got what's coming to him. And then the third person started out at the harsh end and then moved to the loving end. And that person they called the slider, because he slides from one position to another. This was done actually all on men. This universe was done at men, but it doesn't depend on activity. So what we have here is time. Over time, the Confederate maintains this group consensus, the side moves towards it, and the deviant rejects it. And what chapter 10 measures is how much of the group's attention, the conversation in the group, is devoted to each of these people. How much time do the real subjects spend talking to these people? And what you find is it looks exactly like this. It is instead of this being the political spectrum, percentage of time talking, it's the same. So a huge amount of attention is devoted to the people who disagree. So people go around and say, oh, there are millions, one person is harshness, and the whole group turns its attention on that one person, trying to convince him to change his mind and see things the way the group does. This is the pressure towards conformity. Is there someone who questions what you think? It looks to me like this is the right thing. Here's someone who calls that into question. You can restore your internal balance by making that person come to see that you are right. And so lots of attention to that person, similar attention paid here. And as that person comes to agree with you, you don't need any longer to continue focusing your attention on that person. What's especially interesting is towards the end, it's not the deviant changing their mind, this is now extended on talking. People quit talking to the deviant. That is, it's not thinking, wow, this is really fascinating, this is the person we want to talk to, it's so much fun to be exposed to ideas different from my own. You try to make the person come to agree with you. When the person proves stubbornly intransigent, won't change his mind, you just quit talking. Essentially what you've done is reject that deviant. That is, it's no longer talking to that person. And you can imagine just that sort of thing happening at all sorts of groups. A bunch of you get together and you think, let's discuss racial issues, and it turns out one person is in the KKK. You would spend a lot of time at the beginning saying, are you crazy? And then at some point when the person doesn't say, I am crazy, I see the error of my ways now, you're like, how about we just don't discuss race or anything else with that person anymore? Or, likewise, if you have a Bible study group, you get together each day to discuss scripture, and one atheist thinks, God, it would be fun to go, and the atheist is like, what, you guys believe this stuff? This is just a story. It's a pagan ritual. At first, you go, no, let's tell you why it's right. And then, after a little while, you think, like, how about you don't say anything anymore in this group? That is, you will do something like this at some point. And it doesn't have to, like all of these things will work the other way. That is, the person who questions the group will receive a lot of pressure to change, and then they will give up. Chapter also included other dependent variables, that is, other measures of these responses. So, for example, he told them, we're going to meet again next week to discuss another case, but the room actually that we can get is a little smaller, and there may not be enough space for everybody to return next week. So if you could write down on a piece of paper and turn it in anonymously who you think should be invited back for next week and who shouldn't. So here's another way that you can respond to the deviants. And it turns out the person whose name appears on the do not invite back list is the deviant. And again, this doesn't have to be that way. You can think, like, what fun is discussion without someone taking the other side? Much more stimulating with both sides represented. Instead, you think it's just annoying that both sides represent. What you want in a group with other people is like, oh my gosh, you're right, that's amazing what you thought. I thought it too. And then you think, this is fun, I love discussing
try to change people so that they all agree, and then you pick the group going forward because they agree with you. That is, you carefully select the people that you're going to hang out with so that they will agree with you and validate your opinions. I had a colleague, actually, who was a hostile driver, and he was always annoyed by other people. I didn't cut in front of him or didn't use this single comment, oh my God, I can't believe that person behaved that way. And his wife would always say, oh, maybe they're in a rush, or, if you hadn't been quite so close by to her, I knew then that would have been so annoying. And all he wanted, iron marriage, was for his wife to say, oh my God, you're right. I see the world the way you do. That isn't true. And for reasons that remain mysterious in relationships, she wouldn't just say that. She would always try to say, oh, I see the world slightly differently from you. And he just wanted her to say, you're right, he's a jerk. Wow, that is bad when he didn't use his directions. And so on. He just wanted a social comparison.
So if they're all equally dominating each other, who's voting as president?
So then that's somewhat arbitrary, but you'll definitely pick someone who's president who represents this group consensus. So I mentioned earlier this other independent variable, which is how much you wanted to be in the group. And it turns out all of these things that I showed you here, how much pressure is brought around this person, how likely that person is to be rejected. All of those things are exaggerated when this is the group you really, really want to be in. When you wanted to be in the movie club, and instead you're in this political discussion group, then this pressure to reject the deviant is smaller. And you can imagine this is occurring. So you're a member of the Young Democrats Association, and someone says, oh, I really like the Star Wars movies. God, I don't like them that much. That isn't going to be as important as, oh, we have to kick that person out of the group, as if they disagree about something central to the group. So when you want to be in a movie group and people disagree about Johnny Rocco, your desire to kick them out of the group while still present is attenuated. Okay, so that was the devious part. Let's move on to the affiliation part, which is also the work of Schachter. And at the very beginning, I introduced social comparison as this desire to be with other people, to be out on the street when your team wins, to be in a support group, study group, political discussion group, religious community. All of those things have this strong desire to be with other people. And things like solitary confinement are punishing, not just because you're in a little tiny concrete cell, but also because you're denied the presence of other people. That is, it seems humans have a need for affiliation, need to be with other people, and partly for these social comparison reasons. That is, you just want to be together. One of the reasons universities still exist. That is, you could just lie at home by yourself and watch universities on video, but it's more fun to actually be with other people. Being with other people is intrinsically rewarding. And chapter 1 to explore along these same lines the factors that influence this need to be with other people, the desire for affiliation. And so he examined one factor which might influence it, which is anxiety or uncertainty. That is, are people more eager to be with others, not be alone, when they are anxious? And so Schachter created anxiety in people, either high levels of anxiety or low levels of anxiety. And he did this by bringing subjects into the lab. They were greeted by Dr. Gregor Zilski, wearing a formal white lab coat, who told them that as part of their participation in the experiment today, they were going to have their upper pain threshold assessed. That is, they would be hooked up to a shock generator, and the current would be turned up and up until it was the maximum pain they could possibly tolerate. And that level would be recorded, and then they repeat the procedure to try to get a good level of the upper limits of their pain tolerance. That's the high anxiety condition. People regard that as somewhat alarming. There, actually, in this experiment, wasn't a shock generator. That is, people were never given shocks. The idea wasn't to actually induce pain, but just make them anxious, worrying about the pain that was to come. Or in the low anxiety condition, they were told that they would be hooked up to a device that would measure their sensory threshold. That is, they would receive the tiniest possible shock that they wouldn't even be able to feel, and then very slowly the curve would be turned up until they first sense something. And then that would be recorded as their lower sensory threshold. The tiniest feeling that they could possibly report. And this is, of course, the way things like audiology exams are done. Very, very quiet noise, and just trying to, I think I heard it now, and they turn that down, and so on. So that done instead with sensory thresholds. And the idea is that's not very scary. That is, people now waiting for the tiniest possible shock they can feel are in the low anxiety condition. People expecting to receive the most painful shock they can possibly stand are in the high anxiety condition. So now we have an experiment because we have random assignments. So just come in, flip a coin, hat. If it comes up heads, you assign them to that group. If it comes up tails, you assign them to that group. Let me pause here for a methodological point, which is there are two basic ways of doing experiments. This is known as a between subjects approach. So a subject can either be in the high anxiety condition or in the low anxiety condition. Simplest way to do an experiment is just either you're here or you're here, and then different things happen to you. You measure something at the end, the dependent variable, and you see if that anxiety manipulation made a difference. The other way of doing an experiment, people seem to prefer, for reasons that are entirely irrelevant, is known as within subjects, where people appear in both conditions in one order or the other. So you can have people come in once for the high anxiety condition and once for the low anxiety condition, and then you compare how much of whatever it is they do there to how much of whatever it is they do there. Almost always it's easier to do between subjects. Sometimes, in fact, it's not possible to do the within subjects approach where people are in both conditions. So if I'm interested in something like, does smoking cause cancer? For a start, I'd probably do a study rather than an experiment. But let's say I could do it experimentally. I get a group of babies. I pay their parents $100, say, to convince their kids early on to smoke heavily. Other parents, I pay them $100 to discourage their kids from smoking. And then I wait until they're all dead. And my descendants, study whether people who were assigned randomly to do a lot of smoking died younger and more often of lung cancer than the people who were randomly assigned to the no smoking condition. That would be an experiment on the effects of smoking on longevity. Notice you could in fact do exactly that experiment with non-human animals, if we believe such things were reasonable. Have 100 rats, 50 of them randomly assigned to smoke, 50 of them not, and study their longevity. That experiment is necessarily between subjects. That is, you can't say, okay, after they die, I will now bring them back and put them in the other condition, the non-smoking condition. I'll see if they live longer lives that way than they live in the smoking condition. So obviously, half the people are just in one condition, half are in the other. For other sorts of studies, sometimes it's reasonable to put people in both conditions. It's always easier, and sometimes only possible to do this between subjects approach. Anyway, this is between subjects approach. Everyone just goes through one thing. Then you wonder about, wait, how do you know these people aren't just more of something? Because we don't have these same people going through this condition. Maybe these people are different from these people, and we're not comparing them to themselves, we're comparing them to some entirely different group of people.
Well, it's truly random assignment, and you get your the representative population that random assignment gets.
They don't even have to represent the population. All you have to do is randomly mix people, and those two groups are tied. So effectively, you are comparing them to themselves in the low anxiety condition because this group is equal to this group. Because it's one group. Anyway, now let's proceed. What is our outcome measure? What we have done is create a state of anxiety, high anxiety or low anxiety, And now we want to measure the desire for affiliation. That is, do people want to be with each other? And the way you operationalize that, the way you test it in this case is basically you ask them, do you want to be with other people? And the pretext for doing so is you're told the machine needs to warm up for a little while. While it's warming up, I'll need you to go to a waiting room. We have a couple of waiting rooms available for you. One has a bunch of other people in it, and one is empty. You can choose whichever room you want. And then the outcome measure, or dependent variable, is what your choice is of the waiting room. And one of them is to wait with others, and one of them is to wait alone. And now the question is, does our dependent variable, what your preference is, depend on our independent variable, how anxious you are? Actually, here, some people indicated they didn't care. Those have been lumped in with the alone. The question is, do you have a desire to be with others, or no desire to be with others? Either a desire to be alone, or no desire at all. And now, what we'll have is simply the counts, that is, of our subjects who are being anxious, how many end up in the room wishing to be with other people. And the answer is, suspense. 20 of them wish to wait with other people, and 12 of them either want to be alone or don't care. So does this show that anxiety creates a desire to wait with other people? Because compared to what? It may just be that everyone wants to be with other people, and it's not the anxiety that it's just people are that way. So we need to compare to what? Which is compared to people who aren't anxious. And the answer is, if you're not anxious, you don't have, or you're much less likely to have a desire to be with other people. If you are anxious, the desire to be with other people goes up significantly. For those of you who've taken and passed Psych 60, what test would I do on these data? Chi-squared, exactly. No questions. Is that diagonal bigger than that diagonal? The answer is yes. So there, people want to be together. There, people don't want to be together. So it's suggesting, in this state of uncertainty, what you want is other people, and checking you to do social comparison with. That is, how anxious should you be in this condition? Should you plan your escape? Should you grab the experimenter and give him the shocks instead? That is, what is the right response in the high anxiety condition? The right response is going to be heavily determined by what other people think. Is it reasonable to be given a natural electroshock in an experiment? Look, I'll get together with some other people, and we can discuss whether that's the case or not. So remember, there was an argument way back there on the board that one wanted to do social comparison with similar others. So here, it wasn't specified who the other people in the room were going to be, just other people. But it's possible to see, is that desire for togetherness specific to togetherness with people who are similar to you?
I would just wonder why alone we don't care when we work together, because to me alone would specify like a desire to be alone, like some people would choose specifically.
Yeah, so you can break it down. It turns out there isn't really any big difference between these two. And because we're looking at, is there a desire to be together, those are really just examples. Right? So you might imagine if you were interested in desire for aloneness, right, then you would need to break out no desire at all on your way. So what Schechter wants to know is, when you're made anxious, is your desire driven by the wish to be together with similar others? Or is it just a desire to be with anybody? Or you can even imagine maybe when you're anxious, there's a desire to be with others who are different from you. So if you're in a cancer waiting room, would you like to be with other people who also just received a diagnosis of terminal inoperable cancer? Or maybe what you'd like to be with is a group of people who aren't sick at all, who can distract you, take your mind off them. That is this need for togetherness driven by social comparison or driven by an opposite desire to be with people who aren't like you? So, what chapter does is recreate this experiment. Only the high anxiety condition, so everybody now is in the high anxiety condition. What he does, luckily there are only two outcome variables here, is manipulate the nature of the other people with whom you're given the opportunity to wait. So again, we have some people given the choice of waiting together with others while the machine warms up, or waiting alone, or there. For half of the subjects, you're told, while the machine is warming up, you can either wait in a room by yourself, or you can wait in a room with some other people who are also waiting to be in this experiment. That's the similar to others condition. So that's one condition where you're waiting with other high anxiety people waiting for the same experiment. Or you're told here, really they're irrelevant people, that there's another room and people are waiting for office hours in that room, and if you want, you can go and wait with them, or you can wait in a room by yourself. So here, if the desire is for distraction, people should be very keen to wait together when they're anxious with other people who aren't in the same circumstances. If instead it's a desire to be with similar others for social comparison purposes, then when you're given the opportunity to wait with similar others, that desire should be present, the desire to be with the other people. And the finding is, he didn't run very many subjects, you recreate this desire to be with others when the others are anxious. If the others are not anxious, going through something different from what you are going through, nobody has a desire to wait with them. That is, what you want here is other people who are like you for comparison. How should I feel about a shop? These people aren't useful. And this is in fact exactly how support groups work. That is, if you have some wasting illness, you would like to have a support group of other people with exactly your disorder so that you can get together and discuss how you feel and how you want to feel. You don't want to be with a support group of people who don't share what you're going through, because people sort themselves on all sorts of dimensions like this. And when you're anxious about something, that's when this desire to be with others is especially strong, and the others you want to be with are similar others. Now, there's one confusing thing about this experiment, which may already have confused you, which is he could have done it differently. He could have given people a choice, make people anxious, and say, do you want to wait with similar others or dissimilar others? And the prediction is people would say, I'd rather wait with similar others than dissimilar others. He didn't do that comparison. What he did was, do you want to wait with similar others or alone for half the people? Do you want to wait with dissimilar others or alone for the other half of the people? So no one is given a choice of the kind of person they want to wait with. They're just given a, do you want to wait with other people when they're similar, or do you want to wait with other people when they're dissimilar? So either way it would have been fine. The way he did it is this slightly more confusing way. So it suggests here, misery loves company, but the nuance of it is misery loves miserable company. That is, misery doesn't just want to hang out with other people, misery wants to hang out with other miserable people. And of course, things like depression support groups work that way. And in fact, strategically, it's unwise that they do work. So if you think the world is bleak, life is pointless, then you die and worms eat you, and everyone is around you where to live. Should you get together with other people and think, oh no, life is beautiful, it's amazing, what you're going to accomplish, you can leave a legacy, and if you love sometimes worms eat you before you're even dead. You think, wow, that is good to know. Either life is bleak, and you validate it. In fact, you make me realize life is even bleaker than I appreciated before. Let me tell you something depressing. Wow, thanks. That validates my view that the world is cold and hopeless place. And so support groups for things like depression will tend to validate being depressed. Happy people get together with happy people, like, oh, flowers smell beautiful, and birds and bees are amazing. Wow, I think that too. And then those people that are happy, those people get more and more depressed. Because what you want, if you're miserable, is other miserable people. That's why if you try to cheer up a miserable person, oh no, look at all the amazing things in the world, they don't say, thanks, that was useful. They think, I think maybe we shouldn't hang out anymore because we see the world fundamentally different. And then the rest people are left without any happy place. Okay, one more thing. Quick. Third order, as a Psyc. So one of the things one may observe in these various experiments that I've been talking about is that the preference isn't complete. That, as I said, people who are anxious want to wait with other people, whereas people who are not anxious have no such desire. That is, these people are expressing no need to wait with other people. These people are expressing a desire to wait with other people. But there are also these people, that is, these people are made anxious, and they say, I don't particularly want to wait with other people. And these people who are not anxious still kind of do want to wait with other people. So this factor accounted for 100% of this outcome. Everybody would either be in that side or that side. That is, every anxious person would think, I really need to do social comparison now. And every calm person would say, I don't need to do any social comparison things. And likewise, here, people who are anxious and are told you can wait with other anxious people, most of them, slight majority of them, want to be with those other people, but still 40% of them think, well, no thanks, don't need any social comparison right now. So what you get in addition to a response to this experimentally manipulated state of anxiety, right here, or the nature of the comparison people, is imperfect responses. That is, you can shift people's behavior, but some people refuse to be shifted, and some people come pre-shifted. Something accounts for that, and it's a non-experimental factor, because we did exactly the same thing to all 32 of these people, and it only worked on 20 of them. Or here we did the same thing to all 10 of these people, and it only worked on 6 of them. So one might wonder, is there some other factor in the people that shapes their need for affiliation or their preference to do social comparison when in a high anxious condition? And Schachter suggested maybe birth order could be that thing. That maybe where you come in the run of siblings has an impact on your desire to turn to others when in a time of stress. And Schachter suggested this might be the case because the upbringing of children, and basically he just divided it into firstborn and laterborn, though other people have done more nuanced analyses. The environment in which firstborn children are raised is very different from the environment in which laterborn children are raised. That is, he suggested for firstborn children, the people around them are a source of love, support, and nurture. Those are the parents. So firstborn baby cries, parents rush over to take care of it. Laterborn child cries, it's probably because its older sibling made it cry. And so other people not only aren't necessarily a source of comfort, they can actually be a source of the opposite. And the way parents respond to firstborn children is radically different from the way they respond to laterborn. It's not only that there's a sibling who's not tending to you, but also the parents know that children aren't that fragile. And so the firstborn child, any tiny response, oh, the parents are there. Oh, I thought the child breathed a little funny. The parents are out of bed, looking under their crib. Should we do anything? Should we go to the emergency room? I think it's okay. Laterborn, oh, it's blood. Right? Don't worry about it. It's healed. born 1999, went to college 2016. One picture of you actually being held by your older sibling. Oh, yeah, we always meant to make a book for you, but we don't do that. They won't say that, they'll think that. But basically, they know they have a kid. Right now, you're just like an extra, and they don't know you as assiduous. They may love you as much, but not as careful. And so the thought is, these very different environments in which kids are raised will give rise to a difference in how they do social comparison or this need for affiliation. That is, firstborn children will learn as soon as they're in distress, other people are there to cure them of it. Later-born children have to be more independent, manage on their own, and sometimes, when they're under stress, wish just to get away from other people. So now, what you could do is divide people into firstborn and laterborn, put them in the high anxiety condition, that is, bring in firstborn and laterborn children, tell them they will get a massively painful electric shock repeatedly, ask them, would you like to wait together with others or alone? That is, you can simply redo this experiment, but now dividing people into firstborn and laterborn. That is, these are people with older children, these are people without older children.
I was just like, it's kind of easy to put first and more, like everyone.
Oh, sorry. Laterborn. That's a common sense. So one way to do it is to rerun this, bring people in. Now, notice this is not experimental factor. That is, we're not randomly assigning people to have older siblings or not. It's too late for that. We can randomly assign people to have younger siblings, but not older siblings. So people come in naturally, either firstborn or laterborn, even more the high anxiety condition. Or if you were lucky enough when you ran these experiments to collect these data, that is on a questionnaire, you happen to ask them, do you have any older siblings? Yes or no? You could actually just reanalyze those data, breaking them down by this non-experimental factor. And the data would be, when you get all of this, 32 of the firstborns express a desire to be with others when they're anxious. 16 have no such desire. Of the laterborns, 21 want to be together. And 39 don't have that desire. And so again, you go to square, and what you discover is, consistent with this, we know there's always variability, we're not explaining, but firstborns tend to want to be together when they're anxious, and laterborns tend not to have that desire. And if you're really good, you can actually figure out the average family size from these data, by what percentage of people are firstborns. Schechter also is interested in real-world implications of this. That is, if, when anxious, some people want to be with others and some people want to be not with others, then you ought to see people doing differentially well in circumstances where there is readily available social comparison when anxious and when there is not. And so he looked at a variety of things to test this. So he thought of, for example, there are two ways that you can imagine dealing with serious psychological distress. That is, if you are upset deeply and enduringly about something, you can cope with it in a social way, which would involve, for example, going to therapy. That is, that's a way of turning to other people to cope with uncertainty, distress, etc. And it turns out firstborn children are more likely to go to therapy and stick with therapy if they're there. Laterborns less likely to go to therapy The other way you can imagine of coping with psychological distress is to become alcoholic. This actually turned out not to be a social way, because alcoholics aren't social thinkers. Alcoholics are people who drink by themselves. And so your prediction would be, well, what is your prediction? Who should be more likely to become an alcoholic, firstborn or later? In fact, that is the case. Firstborns are underrepresented among alcoholics, overrepresented among people in talk therapies, overrepresented among people who are alcoholics. Yes. Well, I mean, the exact statistic isn't a single count, because the correlational finding is you don't have random assignment to report in that position. In fact, that is an issue. So, we'll spend a few minutes on this. You're allowed to plug your ears now or the web or whatever. Because we don't have random assignments to firstborn and later born, we might worry a little bit about causality. For that missing 60th of your grade, what is the issue? It's not the case that your desire to be together is what caused you to be a firstborn. So causality isn't going backwards. But that still leaves us with the possibility that some third factor causes you to have a desire to be together and causes you to be a firstborn. What would such a factor be?
If you're firstborn, you don't really have siblings to be together with all the time. And if you're later born, you're always.
Yeah, so that's still an effect of being firstborn. That would still be the causal power is here to influencing that.
Maybe because if you're a first-born child, you might have more responsibilities, so you might, like, be more likely to be distressed, or your lifetime than
Yeah, so we'll come back to other differences with firstborn and later. We'll cover next class. But again, your argument is still, this is causal. That this gives you more responsibility, having more responsibility is what causes you to have this desire. So the issue here, and it's a hard one, is this is confounded with family size. So if you're from a family with just one child, that is a small family, you're necessarily in this condition. If you're from a huge family, that is if there are 15 children, 14 of those children are going to be here, and just one of the children here. So large families are contributing lots of people to the later born group, and small families are contributing to the first born. So these will be people from small families, these will be people from large families. And you might think it's not whether you're firstborn or later born, it's people in small families are looking for more social contact, and people from large families are looking for less social contact. What's precious to them is some alone. And it's not whether you're first or later, it's whether you're a small family or a large family. And in fact, family size is confounded with all sorts of other factors. Internationally, for example, what fraction of Chinese people from, say, the past generation are firstborns? Roughly